The future is here, and Saudi Arabia has taken a page right out of a science fiction novel. It seems the ambitions of the Arabs are soaring higher than even the tallest skyscrapers because they decided to create a city entirely of 2 buildings in a mega project that is estimated to cost an absurd $1 trillion. Yes, you heard that right. If you're wondering what a city that costs $1 trillion looks like, or how a city can be contained to just 2 buildings, or even if the creation of such a city is even possible, strap in because we've got you covered. Here's everything you need to know about Saudi Arabia's newest megaproject, the Mirror Line. The marketing has been intense, and the graphics have been stunning. Saudi Arabia is going full throttle with their plans to create this technological wonder, and we're all in for the ride. The line is the brainchild of Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and part of a mega-project known as NEOM, which is part of their Vision 2030 project. The word NEOM means new future, and Saudi Arabia has high plans for theirs. NEOM is meant to be the city of the future, meant to reduce its dependence on oil and increase tourism and technology, as well as investment in education. According to the government, Vision 2030 will create 380,000 jobs and add $48 billion to the country's GDP. The plan for the line was announced on January 10, 2021 by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia himself in a presentation that was broadcast on state television. The prince, who also acts as chairman of the NEOM board of directors, released a promotional video in July 2022, which created even more hype surrounding the project. 3 massive megaprojects make up the plans for the city. The first is a floating 8-sided shipping port in the Red Sea called the Octagon, and the second is a year-round ski resort named Trojan, but neither of them can compare to the sheer scale of the Mirror Line. With a height of 1,600 feet, making them the 12th tallest buildings in the world and the 3rd tallest in the country, after the Abrag Al Bait Clock Tower and the proposed Jeddah Tower. The twin buildings will be completely covered in a reflective glass facade. There's a distance of about 50 meters between them, but that's completely normal for a skyscraper. Here's the shocker. The buildings will run parallel for 170 kilometers. Yes, you heard that right. The 2 buildings will start from the Red Sea and stretch from coast to coast over desert sand, rock, and mountain in Saudi Arabia's northwestern Tabuk province. The Arabs are planning to go big or go home, apparently because this length is equivalent to 2001 World Trade Centers put together. The city will be divided into nodes, and the 2 mirrored buildings will be joined by horizontal walkways. The line will consist of 3 layers, with 2 of them underground for infrastructure and transportation, and the last one on the surface for pedestrians. Communities are organized in 3 dimensions, with businesses and residential areas stacked on top of each other in the interior. The line can house up to 9 million people. Residents will be able to walk to all of their daily needs within 5 minutes, and according to the Saudi government, the line's infrastructure makes it possible to travel end-to-end in 20 minutes through high-speed rails, with no need for cars, resulting in nearly 0 carbon emissions. Lower carbon emissions are pretty much the entire idea behind the project. The Mirror Line has a footprint of just 34 square kilometers, which is less than 4 square meters for every person that could live in it. And get ready to say goodbye to the cramped millennial apartments, because despite that, it claims that every person will have at least 1,000 cubic meters of urban volume. Since the city has no streets, the main modes of transportation will be walking or cycling, meaning no noise from vehicles and no greenhouse gas emissions. Other amenities that will be included in the city are both an airport and shipping areas, as well as places for sports, entertainment, and tourism, which is one of the main focuses of the project. The documents uncovered by the Wall Street Journal include ideas like vertical farming, a marina for yachts, and a sports stadium over 1,000 feet above the ground. The whole city will be under the control of artificial intelligence, which will be continuously working using trends and data models to improve the living experience for residents. The residents will even be paid for submitting data to the line. Anyone who comes to live here has been promised a great time, but this will be a big boon for the country as well. The Red Sea already carries 10% of the world's trade, and with the line being connected coast to coast, every part of the world is accessible with just a 6-hour flight. This means that not only do tourists have easy access to the city, but it also has a direct route to both international and Saudi markets for investors. The line will even have its taxation laws, free of Saudi Arabia's own Islamic Sharia law. And the government plans to take full advantage of that too, with the economic area ready to serve wine and cocktails when it opens next year. If the plans all succeed, we may very well be looking at the next party capital of the world. In October 2022, excavation work began to lay down the foundations for the buildings. Now, it is only a matter of time before we see this scientific beast come to life. Now that we've gotten into all the promises made by the Saudi government, they'd sure paint a pretty picture. But let's now take a look at how likely these claims are to become a reality. If you're liking this video so far, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the bell icon to turn on notifications for any upcoming videos we have. If everything covered up till now raises some serious red flags for you, or you think this is all too good to be true, you might be correct. Mohammed bin Salman may have claimed that the line is a revolution in civilization, but people remain skeptical. Critics have questioned whether a project of this magnitude is even possible, and if it is, if Saudi Arabia is the one to carry it out. The country has a history of falling through with its architectural promises. The Jeddah Tower, for example, was supposed to be the tallest building in the world, but it remains on hold to this day with only 1/3 of its proposed height reached. But even if Saudi Arabia does plan to carry it out, can it fulfill all of its environmental and social goals? Some have painted the entire idea of the project as positively dystopian. Others have raised specific points. For one, the claim that residents will be able to transit from one end of the line to the other in 20 minutes sounds absurd. 20 minutes for about 170 kilometers implies a speed of 510 kilometers per hour, something that modern-day railways still cannot achieve. So unless Saudi Arabia has a state-of-the-art railway system somewhere in the works, it doesn't sound all that likely. Another point that was raised is that vertical travel in high-rise buildings needs to be extremely sophisticated, especially so for one that has such a high population density. The structure is equivalent to a conventional 125-story skyscraper in height alone. Sure, the city may claim to be made for humans and to eliminate the need for commuting, but will it just be trading off traffic lines for elevator waiting periods? And while we're on that topic, a line probably isn't the best shape to cut transit times because you can't cut across it from the middle. A circle would have worked just fine, and we haven't even gotten into the dystopia of it all. Many have claimed that the city pretty much functions as a state surveillance hub, with cameras at every corner and constant monitoring using sensors and facial recognition technology. Sure, a city fully under artificial intelligence and this technologically advanced sounds good on paper, but how long until all of that falls under a totalitarian system? 1984, anyone? On top of that, while the claim behind the line is that it would have zero carbon emissions, it's not hard to figure out that the emissions for the materials and constructions for a project of this magnitude would be massive. According to estimates from Oldfield at the University of New South Wales, the construction of the line will produce over 2 billion tons of CO2. Already, the Huaytat indigenous tribe has been displaced by the project. Thousands have already lost their homes for what some would call a vanity project, and the tribe is on the verge of disappearing off the face of the earth. And this would only get worse. The migration of local bird life is next, and when the building is finally made, everything around it will be boiling. How would a 500-meter-high mirror continuously reflecting heat and light to the sand for 170 continuous kilometers affect the ecosystem all around it? The line is quite unbroken. There's been plenty of research on instances where natural habitats have been fragmented due to roads or buildings. Its stopped migration kills off weaker animal species, causes inbreeding and limited genetic diversity, and all the plans that have come out for the line yet, it seems they've pretty much overlooked it entirely. Which, for a project claiming to be entirely for the benefit of the environment, is not a very good look, but that is if it is even completed. While the deadline to build NEOM is 2030, the Wall Street Journal reported that the development would have to be constructed in stages and could take over 50 years to complete. On top of that, while the initial cost was said to be about $500 billion, which comes to a measly $55,000 per resident, costs are estimated to rise to over $1 trillion. That's no surprise, though. The level of sophisticated technology required for this project is sure to be expensive, even in a country where labor is usually found to be very cheaply available. With all that in mind, one can't help but think that maybe Mohammed bin Salman has bitten off more than he can chew. Even years into its development, project is still facing major setbacks. From gun clashes with the displaced tribes to foreign investors pulling out, the future of this so-called utopia seems bleak indeed. Particularly so because the leading figure in the project has a long list of human rights violations behind him. Just a few years ago, after new evidence seemingly pointed to the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi in Istanbul being ordered by the Crown Prince, many Western investors started boycotting the kingdom. Funding for the project fell through and only resumed once the US president conducted a high-profile summit with the prince. The whole project itself has been speculated to be an extended marketing tactic for Saudi Arabia itself, meant to redeem its reputation from various controversies. After all, architecture has been used throughout history to put forward a political agenda. The intense marketing of the line focuses on the future, making larger-than-life promises about environmental sustainability, technology, and luxury. One would assume that its planners and designers are working towards something that would revolutionize how we look at cities. But as it's been pointed out, it seems the plans for the line are nothing more than a pipe dream, with way too many logistical issues and a little too much short-sightedness. Should the Crown Prince retire his plans to the graveyard of failed megaprojects remains yet to be seen. Either way, it will be a spectacle.